Greetings and salutations, friends. You'll have to excuse me because I'm a little bit out of sorts here. There is a heat wave, and therefore, even with an air conditioner upstairs blasting all day, if I turn it off for 5 minutes, it is 100 in there. So I've had to retreat to a backup studio area here in my home in order to do the broadcast tonight. And it's hot as hell in here too. But we're going to try to move forward. So previously we started covering David Wilcock's latest stream, but I always sort of forget to include the list of, I don't know any other word to call them, but scams that David Wilcock has been involved in. First of all, there was the GoFundMe scam for Pete Peterson. For those that don't recall, David Wilcock claimed that Pete Peterson, his whistleblower source, was a top secret government insider and worked for Ronald Reagan as a science and technology advisor, except he didn't, and we proved that here. Later, David Wilcock claimed that Pete Peterson was being attacked by the deep state, and they were going into his home and throwing everything into dumpsters, and there was bulldozers. The scam was widely publicized on Jimmy Church's radio show and raised some $60,000. Turns out it was a run-of-the-mill foreclosure that had been taking place for some 2 or 3 years before the scam even began, and there was no saving that home. In other words, it was already foreclosed on, but the bank had given Mr. Peterson quite some time to get his belongings out of the property, and he didn't. So eventually, they send a clean-out company to go in there and throw everything out. There were people on the ground talking, curious people who wanted to know about this Pete Peterson and the deep state attacking him in his home, who went there, talked to the people that were cleaning out the property for the bank, and found out that it was a hoarding mess. There was nothing of value in there, but there was a lot of dead cats and bottles of piss. So that should tell you something about the mental state of David Wilcock's so-called whistleblowers, so-called insiders. Later, David Wilcock would be involved in another donation scam. This one centered around Emory Smith and some sort of deep state attack on this man who David Wilcock claimed autopsied some 3,000 aliens. Even Emory Smith himself would say that that was not true. He claimed that he had access to tissue samples, not actual alien bodies. But Sam went deeper, claiming that the deep state had attacked him, and he ended up in the hospital due to this deep state attack. Friends, it turns out that that was another scam. Why do we know this? We know this because Mr. Emory Smith's former, I suppose, father-in-law, the father of his longtime girlfriend, took to YouTube and told everyone the truth, that Emory Smith had an alcoholic episode and ended up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. But it turns out there wasn't a deep state attack. It had more to do with Emory Smith's alcoholism and irresponsible drinking than it did with any sort of deep state attack. Next, we get, and I'm going to share this. This is from Wayback Machine, because interestingly, after our reporting on this Emory Smith scam, David Wilcock took this blog post down. At least I believe he did, to the best of my recollection. But thanks to the wonders of the Wayback Machine, we can still get the details of this David Wilcock and Emory Smith scam. According to Emory Smith's one-time, I think the only proper term for him is father-in-law, but he was not married to his girlfriend. So let's say father of Emory Smith's longtime live-in girlfriend gave us the truth and said that this raised some, I believe it was $80,000. So here we have the Pete Peterson scam. Turned out that that was a scam. That raised $60,000. Then we have the Emory Smith scam. According to the father of his longtime live-in girlfriend, that scam raised $80,000. Why is David Wilcock involved in all of these fundraising scams? I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to take a trip back in time, thanks to the wonders of the Wayback Machine, and see this incredible blog post that he wrote urging people to donate while Emory Smith was under deep state attack. But he wasn't. He was actually in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. And I'd just like to say, David Wilcock, why did you, if you did indeed take this down from your website, why did you take it down from your website if it wasn't true? Why didn't you address this with your audience or with the public? Why didn't you explain why you were involved in some sort of fundraising scam claiming Emory Smith hit with massive attack after coming forward? And again, Emory Smith claims to have autopsied about 3,000 different types of ET humanoids. No, he never claimed that. David Wilcock made that up. Emory Smith claims that he had access to tissue samples that may have been alien. I don't know. The day after he announced his coming forward, he was hit with an attack that landed him in the emergency room. Right before his health collapsed, 3 black SUVs followed him and abducted his dog, Raven. And again, the father of his longtime girlfriend said, no, he lost his dog while he was drunk, and the dog got run over and killed. Well, first the dog got lost while he was drunk and given back to him. Later, the dog got killed during another alcoholic binge of Emory Smith. And, you know, God bless Emory Smith. I hope he gets help for his alcoholism. I hope he's gotten help. Last I heard, Emory Smith is still running these Q&A sessions where you too could pay something like $50 to $100 to go to a webinar and ask him questions, you know, about aliens. However, immediately after the abduction, you know, the abduction of his dog, the dog was not abducted. Emory developed pneumonia-like symptoms with a fever and skyrocketed up to 105. The ER in Palm Springs could not admit him until 7 a.m. the following morning. His oxygen level went down to 90%, which, when coupled with the enormously high fever, could very easily have killed him. Look at the drama that David Wilcock tries to play up here, right? As we were finishing this article, his health slipped and he had to go back to the hospital once again. Or maybe, according to the father of his live-in girlfriend, he had another alcoholic bender and had to go back to the hospital. We are calling for your prayers for his health and safety. Yeah, and let's see. When you have been lied to for so long, born into a world where all you've known is lies, it can be pretty difficult when the truth finally appears. I love that he is talking about living in a world of lies while he's lying to everyone. This is a blog post that was on his public website, claiming that Emory Smith was under attack by the deep state. Do you see what this man does? Any excuse to raise money, right? Any excuse to run, and I'm going to say a scam he runs with. Oh, Pete Peterson's house got foreclosed on legally because of whatever reason. Let's claim it was a deep state attack and raise some money. And to this day, people, you know, he got he got Pete Peterson on audio tape to say, yes, he got the $60,000. He's never addressed the fact that the $60,000 was raised in a Kickstarter, in a GoFundMe under false pretenses. Every word, every line, every paragraph in the GoFundMe text body asking for the money was filled with lies. And we've proven that here in our previous reporting. It's almost as if like a person has been locked in a room their whole lives, never allowed to see the outside world, finally being set free. Yeah, I guess it all goes back to the 1950s. Eisenhower wanted to invade Area 51. Yeah, and here he is quoting Jeremy Corbell and Richard Dolan's fake CIA whistleblower here. I love it. So he wants to tell a fake story. Let's quote another fake story. Allow yourself to speculate. We are seeing even the president of the United States was only given a little taste of what was going on at Area 51, even after threatening them. This is all fake. There are deeper forces trying to stop disclosure. This is manipulating people to give money, manipulating people who already are conspiratorial and may believe in all these conspiracies, manipulating them, going, hey, Emory Smith was attacked by the deep state and we've got to help him out. Send money. Emory never intended to come forward. Then why did he? Emory never wanted to come forward about any of his black ops experience. He had no intention to ever do so. And by the way, I just wanted to mention that Emory Smith is no better than David Wilcock. He's never proven any of his claims of working on biological samples of aliens or any of the stuff that he's talked about over the years. He's never proven anything, and he never will. Just like Corey Goode, David Wilcock's other whistleblower insider, or Pete Peterson, the fake Ronald Reagan technology and advisor, science and technology advisor that Ronald Reagan never heard of. We went to the Ronald Reagan archives. We had him do an exhaustive search. There's no mention of this Pete Peterson. And Pete Peterson's entire biography was filled with lies. The man claimed that he worked for the Russian equivalent of NASA. No, we contacted the Russian space historian. They never heard of him. They claimed Pete Peterson won the Order of Lenin Award in Russia. There's a list of people who won the Order of Lenin Award. We checked it. Pete Peterson and his legal name, Gary Peterson, wasn't on it. And now that Pete Peterson is dead, David Wilcock keeps on citing him as a source. You know why? Because you can't check with a dead man. You can't go, excuse me, Mr. Dead Pete Peterson, did you tell David Wilcock that you visited 62 off-world planets? You can't. So how convenient is it that he's quoting a dead man and citing a dead man as his source? And look at this blog post. It's like 80 pages. Oh, I love this. Look, there's a picture of a bullet that David Wilcock claims that the deep state left on a counter. And again, the father of this guy's live-in girlfriend said that he had that caliber of bullet around. He had that caliber of firearm. So was it the deep state, or was this a setup to scam people out of money? A word about what is going on. And let me just check in with the live chat. The background. I always forget that. 1 second, friends. There we go. That is better. And it's interesting that you can only view this history from Wayback Machine, because David Wilcock apparently deleted this from his website. One of our top insiders was almost killed. He's always claiming these deep state attacks. Yeah. And this is supposedly where they broke into his home and, ransacked it looking for something. What were they looking for, David Wilcock? Alien tissue samples? Oh, and this is another one. Very disturbing vehicle accident. Yeah. And guess whose SUV that is? That's Emory Smith's very expensive SUV. And again, the father of his live-in girlfriend said that he was driving drunk when this event occurred. David Wilcock's going to try to tell you that it was a deep state attack. Meanwhile, Emory Smith was driving drunk. elaborate precautions meant getting him to come forward. David Wilcock acts like he's some kind of James Bond, disclosure guy, and he's got all these top secret insiders, and all of his insiders are criminals, drunks, senile old men, drug abusers. He for a time was interviewing a court-martialed child molester. Look at the quality of David Wilcock's sources. Look at the quality. Why would they do this? What happened to the dog? Yeah, the dog got out when he was drunk. That's what happened to the dog, David Wilcock. We are not giving up. Since Emory already gave us the initial bulk of all his coolest stories in the course of 15 episodes, I'm not sure why this was done. And here, a kind neighbor, found his dog and returned it. Of course, this was before he got drunk again and the dog got out and got hit by a car and died, during another drunken bender. Great. Yeah, this is great. The sad part is, even with all this said, there are people who will deny that any of this actually happened. Yeah, because we have a source close to Emory Smith that knew him the entire time these events were unfolding, that told us that everything in this blog post was a lie, David Wilcock. And most of it was related to Emory Smith's drug and alcohol benders. Oh, and then there was photos of Emory Smith in the emergency room. I guess those are lost to history. Too bad those weren't saved. But yeah, while he was in the emergency room, with alcohol poisoning, they took pictures of him. Oh, there's kind of one. Look, there's a wristband to prove he was in the hospital. Yeah, it doesn't prove he was in the hospital for, a deep state attack, David Wilcock. But this is the garbage that David Wilcock sells people. And, at some point in time, you have to say that this stuff rises to the level of criminality. You can't lie to people and tell them to donate to a PayPal scam saying that this man was attacked by the deep state when he wasn't. I don't understand why law enforcement has never gotten involved with Mr. Wilcock and his various scams and controversies, fundraising scams, PayPal scams. And my favorite is the latest fundraising effort of Mr. Wilcock is the Wilcock Spiritual Healing Foundation. Where he encourages people to donate to him and he won't have to pay taxes on it. He literally said that on a public live stream, that he started this so that people could donate money to him and then he wouldn't have to pay taxes. I don't know, friends. So I guess we're going to, I just want to mention, though, the David Wilcock Spiritual Foundation. I'm going to share a few other things. So please bear with me. We are sharing a line from his public website about his spiritual foundation. Here it is, the Wilcock Foundation, Divine Cosmos. Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Development. The Wilcock Spiritual Healing and Empowerment Foundation is a 501c3 dedicated to bringing higher consciousness. Our work is dedicated to uplifting humanity and preservation and protection of our beautiful Mother Earth. 100% of the donations go back into the work of raising consciousness on the planet and bringing forth a golden age of high technology. I guess that's the, hover cars that he said he's building. And galactic brotherhood and sisterhood. We thank you for your support, David and Elizabeth Wilcock. But we looked into this foundation, and on their website, they list all these other charities, and we contacted those charities, and none of those charities have been given any money directly from the Wilcock Foundation. It's just that the Wilcock Foundation lists them so people can donate directly to them, which I think is extremely misleading. Because they have a line that's like, these are some charities our foundation supports. Well, support is a vague word. I think that there is probably a good majority, or let's just say a minority of people have given money to David Wilcock based on all these other, there's an elephant organization, some organization that helps sloths and all these other things. You know, it's not unreasonable to think that people are giving money to the Wilcock Foundation, believing that the Wilcock Foundation gives money to those other organizations they're saying they support. Turns out they don't get a dime from the Wilcock Foundation, near as I can tell. And I've done extensive research on this. Now, those of you following my coverage of Mr. Wilcock are also aware of something called a 990 form. If you run a public charity like this, you are required by federal law to file something called a 990 form because you're a public charity and it's a public document. And that document shows everyone how much money your charity has taken in donations. And then it also shows what you spent all of the money on. Well, David and Elizabeth Wilcock's Foundation has been collecting money for some 3 years, but they've only ever filed one, near that I can tell or find, the 2018 990 form. I have continually requested over and over again to all known email addresses I could find for either David or Elizabeth Wilcock. I requested the 990 form. Now realize they're required by federal law anytime anybody asks them for these forms to give them within 30 days. I have documents that can prove I have made multiple requests over the past 6 months asking for the 2019 and the 2020 990 forms so that I can inform the public about exactly what money David Wilcock has collected for his foundation and exactly what he has spent it on. I believe that this is in the public interest, especially considering Mr. Wilcock's previous involvement in 2 fundraising scams. I believe it is in the public's interest to know just how much money Mr. Wilcock is collecting and what he and his wife are spending that money on. Now, I could share from my email the last few emails that I have sent to them and the dates. Let me just read. Let's get into my sent folder. Every so often, I do send a request. And also, these people are not easy to contact, but they both Elizabeth Wilcock and David Wilcock have contact forms on their website, which is not like an email, but I filled out the contact forms on both their websites asking for these 990 forms. I found email addresses for them and sent them the request. Here's the last request that I sent in April. Before that, a request was sent in February. Before that, November. My last email simply says, Elizabeth and David Wilcock, I sent you my first request, my most recent request, I'm sorry, not first request, in September of 2020. So far, you have ignored that request. This is my 3rd attempt at obtaining your charity's 990 forms by email. If you fail to comply with this request, I will be filing a complaint with the IRS as is appropriate. In accordance with federal law, I am hereby requesting your nonprofit organization's 990 forms for the years 2019 and 2020. Perhaps you should check with your accountant or lawyer, and they would let you know that if someone requests that information, you were required by law to furnish them. Please send these back to me here in PDF or Microsoft Word format. Thank you very much. Best regards, Stephen Cambion, host of Truthseekers. Now, it gets better, friends, because, well, let me stop sharing that. I'm sorry. It gets better because I have recently given up on them ever giving me the forms. I have made multiple requests. I filled out the contact forms on their websites asking for them. I mean, failing knocking on his door and asking for them, which I don't think is appropriate. The other thing that I have had on my list to do for quite some time is to send him a certified letter by snail mail, and I'm still going to do that. Sometime in the next week, I will be sending certified letters, regular printed letters, to all known addresses for Mr. Wilcock, and I have some 3 known addresses. Additionally, I am sending a snail mail letter to the registered agent, which is an accounting firm that is listed on his initial filing paperwork. And actually, I spoke with someone at that company today who told me they weren't allowed to just give me the forms. They had to contact Mr. Wilcock and get permission. I explained to this company that I had been trying for some 6 months to get the 2019 and 2020 990 forms to show how much money that this organization collected and what they spent it on for some 6 months. I also informed them that if I don't get these forms within a reasonable time frame, I'd say the next 45 days, okay, I'm going to give them these letters by mail, by regular mail, by certified mail. And I've also been instructed by the company that is their accounting firm for their charity to email them the request. So I'm doing that today or tomorrow, and then I'm giving them 45 days to respond to the requests, these final requests. I feel I've been more than fair. At this point, we will have made some 7 months, some 10 different attempts, maybe 15 if we count the contact email forms, the contact forms on their website. I will have made some 10 or 15 attempts to notify them that I want these 990 forms, and they have so far ignored me. I've mentioned these additional steps we're taking. I'm sending them snail mail letters by certified mail. Somebody's going to have to sign for the letter at each address that I have for them. I'm sending an email and a snail mail letter to their accounting firm requesting the same thing, the 2019 and the 2020 990 forms. Mr. Wilcock, you are required by federal law to give me these forms. It is in the public's interest to know how much money you have collected with your so-called charity in the past 2 years. So I'm giving notice to his accounting firm and to him that if they don't, within a reasonable time frame, give me the 990 forms, and by that, I will set a deadline of some 45 days after I've sent the last snail mail letter, then my only final recourse is going to be to file an official complaint with the IRS. And I fully intend to do that because I don't believe that Mr. Wilcock should be allowed to just collect money indefinitely and not disclose to the public what he's required, being a public charity, to disclose to the public. So, yeah. And you notice that there's still a donate. I've noticed there's still a donate button on Mr. Wilcock's website. There's still a donate to my foundation button, and anybody can go there and donate by credit card or PayPal. And there's still a donate button on their charity's website. So we have 3 different portals of money flowing into them. And so far, they're refusing to give the 990 forms over to someone who asks for them. And realize, you don't have to be law enforcement or anything to get these forms. They have to give them to anybody who asks, a citizen journalist, an investigative journalist, a curious community member. Anybody is entitled to these forms. Now, we went through the 2018 990, and what we found is that he spent a lot of money on equipment, travel expenses, and other things, but we didn't see anything charitable that he did with the money, at least not in my judgment or estimation of the situation. And I mean, he can say, okay, I'm setting up a studio to do spiritual videos. That's his right, but I don't know. This whole thing stinks. This whole thing stinks, David Wilcock. And I'm putting it on public record here in this video how many times I've tried to contact you to get copies of this 990 form. And yes, Mr. Wilcock, I've been very critical of you, previous fundraising scams that you've been involved with. I've been very critical of the so-called true information that you present to the public. I have a right. This is the United States. I have freedom of speech. Anybody can become a citizen journalist and look into people like you selling people fake stories as true for money. So Mr. Wilcock might not like me. He may consider me one of his harshest critics. However, he's still legally obligated to give me the forms, whether he likes it or not. And if I'm forced, Mr. Wilcock, to force this issue with the actual IRS, I will do so. So the clock is ticking. It's up to you, right? It's up to Mr. Wilcock as to how he wants this to play out. I want to make it very clear that I'm stating my intentions here, but I don't want any of this to be considered any form of cyber stalking or harassment or anything like that, because that's what these guys claim when you catch them, right? Suddenly they're being cyber stalked because you caught them lying to the public or scamming the public, right? Now, we're going to go back to Mr. Wilcock's latest video where he's discussing the most ridiculous, contactee cases ever in the history of UFOs, the 1950s contact cases, which have largely laughed at even by people who are serious researchers into UFOs. Yeah, we're going to go, and we made it about halfway through the last time, I believe. So we're going to go back and we're going to cover some of the other half. And honestly, I don't know how much more of this we're going to get through. Oh, one other final point I want to make before we do this is I've had some very public questions from Mr. Wilcock concerning the financial arrangements between his company, his spiritual foundation, and other questions. When people give, I'm going to ask these questions again for the benefit of Elizabeth and David Wilcock and their, accountant. So the questions I have is, when somebody gives a super chat donation during one of his streams where he's talking about aliens, does that money go to his spiritual foundation, his charity, or does that go to his for-profit company? When Mr. Wilcock sells a course, does that money go to his charity or does that money go to his for-profit company? These are very simple questions. And, I think it's in his best interest and it's in the public's interest to get the answers to these questions. Where does the money go, David? Are you funneling all this money through your so-called charity? So you're not paying any income tax on super chat donations, on courses you're selling? What about your speaking fees? What about money from DVDs and film projects, documentary projects that you're involved in? Where does all that money go? These are very fair questions that he won't answer, to the best of my knowledge. I've tried to get him to answer these questions. So, friends, we are going to, I'm going to share my screen. But first, let's put up our fair use banner here. Just bear with me, friends. Like I said, I'm a little out of sorts, not sitting. I didn't know how much I liked my usual studio until I don't have it. I'm sitting here. Yeah, we've got sort of a ragtag setup just for tonight, but hopefully everything will work out fine. So we are going to first, let me give some attention to the live chat. I see we have quite a live audience tonight, so let's do the shout out. Shout out to Hollis Hurlbutt. Shout out to Michael Corbett, Lee Veltman, FGraf72. The Sixth Sense is here. Oh, and I missed it. Chase Davenport with a kind and generous $4.99 super chat. We thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Chase Davenport, this is a viewer-supported show, and if you want to see more like this, anybody can give us a super chat. We read every single one of them, and we thank every single person who gives us a super chat. There is a little money symbol down there in the live chat. If you happen to be listening on Twitch or on Facebook and you want to support us, come over to YouTube. Just go to the YouTube search bar, search for Truthseekers, and look for that strange guy with the sunglasses. That would be me. And you too can make a super chat donation. There's also donate links in the PayPal donate links, and Patreon support links in the About section. So shout out to Chase Davenport, and thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. It is much appreciated, Mr. Davenport. All right, Jolly Bridge Burner is here. Ellen Fox is here. Shout out to Ellen Fox. AJ is here. Shout out to AJ. Effluent for You is here. Shout out to Effluent for You. Alien Scientist is here. Okay, Matt Gadet is here. Let's see. GS Crippler is here. We mentioned Chase Davenport. Thank you very much for the kind and generous $4.99 super chat. Very generous of you. Let's see. I don't want to miss people here. Plan D is here. else? Hurlbutt. Mention Lee Veltman. He's in every stream I ever go to. Lee Veltman is there. I don't know how he does it. He is in every YouTube stream. Genesis asses S. Adam Bonifate is here. Oh, I'm not even going to try to say this one. I have no idea. Sorry, I'm on a small laptop and I'm somewhat visually impaired. So I'm just going to say shout out to this guy with the weird name. Cool though. Yes, DVA Mechanics is here in the Twitch chat. Shout out to them. And let's see, did I get everybody? I don't know. I think so. Dirty Bong is here. That's a great name. Dirty Bong. All right, yeah, I think we got most of you with the shout outs. Otherwise, let me know in the live chat. We're going to go back to it's David Wilcock. Alien Scientist is here. Shout out to Alien Scientist. Always happy to see him in the live chat. He must not be streaming right now. Yeah. So I guess let me shut some things down here because I notice when I'm running this green screen, things are laggy. And I don't know why that is. But I don't want to have, anything open more than I have to here. It may affect performance. So we're going to go back to David Wilcock's latest stream where he was covering the friendship case, which is one of the most ridiculous, hokiest, fakest UFO cases ever that is largely laughed at. Oh, look at that. And there is Ellen with a kind and generous $4.99. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I'm going to be using the super chat donations to pay for these certified letters. So if you want to help me bring Mr. Wilcock's foundation to account and force them to disclose the information they're legally required to do so, please do help me out. Every dollar helps us and goes back into the show here. Thank you, Ellen Fox, for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. I will definitely use your $5 to send one of those certified letters. I have them written, Ellen. I have to get them printed out, and that's been the rub. My printer's not working. So I don't care if I have to go to like Staples with a thumb drive and say, print me these letters. I'm going to get it done in the next week. I've been saying I'm going to do this forever, and that's been, holding us up here and getting to the truth about Mr. Wilcock's so-called spiritual foundation. All right, so thank you, Ellen Fox. So now we're going to go back to Mr. Wilcock's latest stream, and we are going to this is a transformative work, so we are citing fair use while we are sharing his stream. We're going to be discussing the things he's talking about and educating the public about how ridiculous the things that he shares with people as factual and real stories are. We're educating the public. We'll be discussing it in the live chat. This is a transformative work. This is fair use. And there he is, Mr. Wilcock, in his latest stream.
A disclosure of 1% of what they know, if what I've heard is true, and I hope it's not. I hope this disclosure is totally awesome. But I'm expecting that it won't be as much as I want, or any of us really want. Anyway, it opens up the possibility that the ETs could do their own disclosure. The law of confusion is now satisfied because they've come forward. So anything is possible, folks. And this is the ETs themselves telling guys like Gaspare and Stefano and Bruno what's going to be happening in the future. The Friends are not the only extraterrestrials who have come to the Earth, so they say. Individuals from various other populations are among us because the Earth is a very particular planet inside the economy of this part of the universe. Others have said that. We've heard that the Earth is like a Garden of Eden, that it has far more complexity in terms of the genetics that it can have on Earth, so that basically almost any life from any other planet could be brought over here and dropped off here, and it will survive if you put it in the right area. There's not a lot of planets that can do that.
Yeah, and this is a ridiculous, stupid statement because, first of all, we don't know what life on other planets is like. For all we know, we're carbon-based life forms, and it's within the realm of possibility that there are, for example, methane-based life forms or hydrogen-based life forms. And certainly those would not be able to just be dropped off the planet Earth. He makes ridiculous, stupid, scientifically impossible statements all the time. He's not that intelligent, though he claimed that he had a 180 IQ, which would make him smarter than, let's see, Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Elon Musk, and Einstein. If he really had a 180 IQ, he'd be smarter than all those people. And he would know that you can't just drop off life from any other planet in the universe here on Earth and it would thrive. That's a stupid statement. It's factually and scientifically inaccurate.
So apparently we have kind of like a museum of a lot of the best stuff from around the galaxy that's all been put here on Earth in terms of life forms, because this planet can actually handle that. Other planets might not be able to. So again, very interesting correlation.
You don't know science,
independent
David.
Testimony that others have said and what these alleged ETs said to the Italians. Back to the slide. The aim of the Friends' presence is not to study us. They know us quite well, in fact, better than we do ourselves. The aim of the Friends' presence is to help us. In fact, the Friends are extremely unhappy about the very high level of hatred, violence, and injustice that we see on the Earth. This is exactly what they say in all the other sources I'm going to be telling you about in our course. And they are very unhappy about the anti-humanistic trend of our science and technology.
You know, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think Mr. Davenport sent another kind and generous $4.99 donation. That's got to be a second one. I believe so. Thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. It is much appreciated. We are a viewer-supported show, friends. So you, too, can help us bring into the light those that are in the darkness. You know, one of the things that we do well here is expose the truth that most people, or that some people would rather people didn't know. And we do a good job at doing that. If you'd like to see more of this kind of work, please do support us.
Being able to see our thoughts and feelings, the Friends can see what we hide behind our masks, words, and smiles. So they're here to help us, and it's a spiritual assistance, right? Other populations are here for other reasons. And the abduction by extraterrestrials of terrestrial humans on Earth, as well as the creation of ET human hybrids, is a reality that the Friends personally told us about as far back as the 1960s.
Yes, but nobody documented that in the 1960s. This is somebody in more modern times, I believe in the 1990s, saying that these friend aliens from Italy told us about this in the 1960s. Again, he's got a problem with sourcing. You know, just because somebody says something, he thinks that that's real. Just because somebody writes something on a public blog post, and if you didn't see our previous coverage, see our last video. He was citing, you know, UFOfandom.com or something, which is a wiki that anybody can edit. And live on our show, we edited it, saying David Wilcock cited this terrible source about this fake UFO case.
And I mentioned this because today there is talk in the media about it, and I remember what the Friends said so many years ago. Well, isn't that interesting? Before the alien abduction thing was ever like a big deal, except for maybe Betty and Barney Hill was the first real acknowledged traditional alien abduction in the 1960s. But prior to that, there was nothing. And it wasn't like the Betty and Barney Hill story really got all that popular at the time.
That's factually inaccurate. There was a TV movie with James Earl Jones, and I can't remember the actress's name, but it was Roseanne's mother from the Roseanne show, played Betty Hill. There was TV movies, there was books, there was articles, there was magazine articles, there was newspaper articles. The Betty and Barney Hill case was hugely popular. Again, factually inaccurate statement. He's got a real problem with facts, this guy. He doesn't do any research. He doesn't know what he's talking about most of the time.
Here's a case where somebody independently was told the same thing that later came true. And that's interesting. That's valid.
Yes, and we've talked about this before. David Wilcock basically states that if two people say the same thing, it's true, regardless of any other thing. If two people say the same thing, it must be true. He says this all the time. That's flawed logic. That's not correct. Just because two people say something doesn't mean they're both factually correct.
If you would assume that he is a credible insider. One more time back to the slide. The Friends told us a lot, and yet they only told us a very small part of what they know, including what they know about the activities of other populations already among us, such as when you feel that your best friend or your lover is telling you the truth. That's the kind of thing people say when they really have the experience, right? Compared with all the other populations visiting the Earth, the Friends have a quite peculiar and precious characteristic.
Yeah, the fake aliens have a whole philosophy. We're going to skip ahead past the friendship case because he gets into, next he talks about the three Georges, the 1950s contactee cases, which are laughable.
Cases gave us more of the message. You do not want to miss this part, folks. So there was three Georges in the U.S. contactee cases. They're not the only people, but they were sort of the most prominent ones. You have George Adamski, you have George Van Tassel, and you have George Hunt Williamson. So these are the three Georges. Now, George Adamski is the guy I'm going to talk about the least of the American contactees.
Yeah, and the reason that he's going to talk about George Adamski the least is because George Adamski has been the most debunked. George Adamski made a lot of ridiculous claims, like he met with the Pope because, you know, he talks to aliens, so the Pope wanted to talk to him and get a message to the aliens, and that was more or less proven false. George Adamski claimed to have all these eyewitnesses to the aliens that he was meeting, and the eyewitnesses later recanted and said, no, George asked me to make it up. So he's been completely and totally debunked, not to mention that his so-called photographic and film evidence is hokey as shit and laughable.
But he, among other things, did have a very strange radial pattern around his belly button that was like a scar. And apparently they removed this organ that I heard about from people in the DS called the omenta. Supposedly there's a very, very dangerous surgery you can have where this placental material from your mother called the omenta, it's rich in blood vessels and it's intermingled with your intestines around the belly button.
And this is proof that George Adamski was some kind of alien. No, this is garbage information brought to you by a garbage information salesman.
What these people in the cabal apparently have done is they cut that thing out because it's got your mother's DNA in it and your antibodies are constantly attacking it. Supposedly, it greatly weakens your immune system if you have it, and if you have it removed, then you get a lot healthier. I had heard about that operation. It's very dangerous because it's so easy to bleed out.
Greetings, Plan D.
Right. So it's extremely dangerous. I do not recommend it. But supposedly, a lot of DS people were getting this done. Therefore, having heard that already, when I went back and read about Adamski, and that he had this cutout scar around his belly button that looks like a jagged edge around it, well, yeah, that's probably what they did. They probably wanted to keep him around longer, and they knew that if you take this thing out and you do it right, that you actually, apparently the people that get the omenta taken out, you don't get sick at all. Your immune system is much, much better.
Yeah, so no doctors on planet Earth know about this. That, you know, I've never heard of it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I can ask doctors about this omenta, and if you take it out, do you never get sick? Again, he's just making this stuff up.
But again, if you eat superfoods and do the right thing, you don't get sick anyway. And you don't need to have some crazy dangerous surgery. So again, I don't recommend the surgery, if you could even figure out how to get one. So now we have the next guy here, George Van Tassel.
George Van Tassel is the creator of the Integratron from Giant Rock. And basically, he scammed the public out of hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this machine that was supposed to be some sort of machine to communicate with extraterrestrials or maybe teleport to other worlds. And surprise, surprise, he was never able to finish the machine and show anybody that it worked, even after collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's kind of like birds of a feather flock together. UFO scammers love telling stories of other UFO scammers. They just leave out the part where these other people scammed the public out of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And he essentially became kind of like the godfather of the modern UFO contactee movement. He got the money together. He was a pilot, and he
got the money together, David, and he collected hundreds of thousands of dollars to build this Integratron that did nothing. It doesn't do anything. It's still there today. It's acoustically interesting, but that's it. It doesn't talk to aliens. It doesn't teleport you to another alien world. And by the way, I believe that he was sued. It's a long story, friends.
He got big money together, and what he did here is he built these UFO gatherings in Giant Rock which is a little area of Joshua Tree. Now, Giant Rock is supposedly the largest freestanding boulder in the world, or at least one of the largest freestanding boulders in the world. Here's a picture of someone standing on top of it. And I will also say that the Native Americans believed that this mountain had incredible energetic properties. Well, sure enough, when you have a gigantic single piece of stone, you're going to get an effect very similar to a pyramid. That stone mass is actually transforming the energy that's all around us that I call consciousness.
Here he is with more fake science.
And raising
more fake science from David Wilcock.
So if you're around Giant Rock, you will get this consciousness enhancement. And believe me, when I went there, I could feel it. I could feel it big time. Let's see another picture of Giant Rock.
Rich from Goofon is here. Hey,
so I guess for a little while, somebody hauled a car up to the top.
I just want to take a moment to thank Rich Giordano from Goofon, because he has been sharing some of our videos. And every time he does that, we get a nice bump up in subscribers, and our audience is slowly growing thanks to help from him and others. And I just want to recognize and thank him. Tell everybody, if you like my show, he said the same thing. He said, if you like my show, you'll probably like Truthseekers. And I would say, if you like Truthseekers, you'd probably like Goofon, because he has a very grounded, he's very interested in UFOs, but he has a very grounded interest and very critical of the scammers, the fraudsters, and the fake narratives going around. I think he's doing excellent work analyzing people like Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo and Jeremy Corbell and others who are out there, basically reading scripts, right, and pushing this UFO threat narrative. I like his show. I've been listening to it back and forth to the cabin. I'm a few shows behind, Rich, but I'll be catching up. So thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
You can see how massive this thing is. And then they actually built a restaurant/meditation gathering room underneath the rock. They actually hollowed it out. It's no longer there. It's been filled in.
What's that about?
At the time, this is what it looked like. There was a whole cool little restaurant down there. You could actually get served food, and they would meditate and get ready for these UFO contacts. So here's another picture.
I agree with you. Adamski was a con, 100%. Absolutely.
That you could go to. Here's a collage of a variety of different pictures, again, of the Giant Rock thing. Now, what's important is that every year they were having these UFO gatherings there, where thousands of people would get together and celebrate
Yes, he did, B. Baker.
their knowledge of ufology, and some of this included alleged contactees. So the name of the restaurant was called the Come On In, I-N-N, really funny pun. So here's the picture of that. And
CW Channer is here.
So this is George Van Tassel and his wife, and they ran this restaurant. And it is reported that Howard Hughes would land his plane.
My pleasure. Thanks for giving us a bump every once in a while, Rich. I appreciate it.
Eva above. So yes, so Howard Hughes, and they talk about this in Law of One too a little bit. Howard Hughes was the big money guy. Howard Hughes was flying in his aircraft. There was a private airstrip in Joshua,
and nobody's ever heard this story except David Wilcock.
Go directly underneath Giant Rock and have dinner or lunch in this Come On In restaurant. George Van Tassel also ended up working with the beings that were being contacted here and tried to build a machine that, if it was successful, would have been a portaling device where people could have actually portaled off to where the ETs wanted them to go.
Yes, so he collected hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's been a long time since I've read about the Integratron, but that was a scam. That was largely a scam. He collected all this money from all these UFO believers that would gather at Giant Rock, bought some land near Giant Rock, and built this basically dome-shaped weird building out of wood that did absolutely nothing. But David Wilcock's going to tell you that the reason why it didn't work, and it's laughable.
We have to meet them halfway. We build part of the work. George Van Tassel actually started building this machine called the Integratron. But according to the Law of One, the rules were broken, and the ETs therefore withheld the final instructions that would have made this machine actually work.
Yeah, and notice that Mr. Wilcock is always quoting the Law of One as if it's some kind of definitive source of real information. It's a channeled work. Nobody knows if any of the information in the Law of One is factually accurate or real, but he's going to tell you why the Integratron failed, and it's because of information in the law of one. And one of these things has nothing to do with the other.
So you can go to the Integratron today. You can go visit it. The building is still there. It's all made out of wood, just like a pyramid, or at least most of it was. And there's an area in.
Yeah, and interesting, when Mr. Van Tassel was collecting all of this incredible amounts of money from people to build this machine, he was telling them that it was going to use Tesla coils and Tesla technology to make the teleportation work. And I just want to say that if you put a huge Tesla coil inside a wood building, that building's going to burn down the first time you turn the Tesla coil on. But what do I know? You know, I'm not talking to aliens.
In the middle that you can stand in, where there's a tube kind of thing up to the top. You can look through the top and see a little hole, and the acoustics are incredible. You hear all the sounds from around the room, and it's a very interesting kind of time warping acoustic effect that you get when you're standing in the middle or sitting in the middle of the thing. Plus, another very strange thing I noticed
David Icke is the truth.
The Integratron is that two people can be whispering to each other across the room, and based on its very unique acoustics, you can hear their whispering all the way across the room like it's happening right next to you. All of these acoustic properties apparently also helped this energetic aspect happen, where it could have functioned as a portal. But
coulda, shoulda, woulda, but it didn't. He collected hundreds of thousands of dollars from people. He built a domed, weird-looking building that did nothing, David Wilcock.
The beings were very specific in saying that it has to be available to everyone. Apparently, Howard Hughes' wealthy friends said, we're going to spend the first 2 years and use it just for the people who put in the millions of dollars.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it might have actually been millions of dollars that he collected. It's been a long time since I've read about the Integratron. But near as I can recall, I certainly know that it was a scam, and a lot of people were pissed off that gave him an awful lot of money that the thing never worked.
And they had firmly decided nobody's getting in there except for the people who paid for it and their close friends for the first 2 years. That decision is why the beings pulled out. Similar things apparently happened in Italy, as was telling.
Sure, it wasn't a scam to collect millions of dollars for nothing. It was because the aliens didn't like them trying to hoard the technology to just the rich people. So they didn't give them the final secrets on how to make the machine work. Garbage, David Wilcock.
Yes. Because we just can't handle it. So we weren't really ready, mature enough for this technology yet, but they tried. So back to the slide. So there is Giant Rock Airport, because again, it's very flat, so Howard Hughes could land there. That's what it was called. So they had these huge, huge annual UFO gatherings that did literally attract about 5,000 people standing out there in the middle of the hot desert. And they got their beach umbrellas. And they did it, I think, in like March, April. So it's still starting to get pretty freaking hot out there. And among the people who would visit were various people who claimed that extraterrestrials.
Yeah, and look, this is the quality of the 1950s contactees. There's people claiming that they met with Venusian aliens, right? Or aliens from Saturn who took them on flying saucer rides to their home planet of Venus or Saturn. You know, it's only years later that people figured out, oh, those planets are not habitable. All the 1950s contactees claimed that they were talking to people from Venus or Saturn or Mars or somewhere within our solar system, because it wasn't generally known or accepted that there was planets outside of our own solar system. So every 1950s contactee case is based on fake science and garbage.
Contacting them in person. And in this case, this woman said, my flight to Venus. So she is one of the contactees who was allegedly taken on board the ship.
Yeah, and you notice her table. They're all selling books. Every one of these people tried to profit, from Adamski to George Van Tassel to Howard Menger. All of the 1950s contactees were selling something. They were selling their fake stories. Seems a lot like today, except today, you know, people use modern science and say, oh, I'm being contacted by aliens from Zeta Reticuli or some other, you know, galaxy, right? Some other star system. Because now we know that no planet in our solar system, except for Earth, is actually habitable.
And flown off to a cool place.
But it's interesting to me that David Wilcock is so desperate for material that he's running with 1950s contactee cases as if there's any value to their fake information. You know, again, it's birds of a feather. David Wilcock's information has zero value. There's no value in anything David Wilcock talks about, just like these 1950s contactee cases. There's no value to anything they talk about.
Like Venus. Here's another slide where it says Giant Rock Interplanetary Airport Aircraft Welcome. Typical for a UFO conference, right? Well, this was in 1954. So here is George Van Tassel posing in front of the Integratron, which he says the Integratron is a time machine.
Yeah, look at this. So he's collecting millions of dollars while he's building this thing, and he's saying that it's a time machine, and it's for basic research on rejuvenation, anti-gravity, and time travel. This is what he was promising people while he was collecting millions of dollars. And the thing never worked, but David Wilcock is going to push this story on his gullible followers like there's any value in this.
Basic research on rejuvenation.
It was a scam, David.
And time travel. So you can go there and you can see it in the background. Originally, by the way, the entire dome was built to lift up off of the bottom of the building and be able to rotate on its own gimbal. Okay? That part of the construction was actually never completed, but apparently the rotation of the entire structure was part of how it was going to work. And I'm sure it would have been fine, except that, again, he wanted to only have it for the rich people for the first 2 years, and the being said, no, you're done, cut you off. Very sad, but that's what actually happened.
Noodle time.
So in the next slide here, we have George Van Tassel on nightly television, discussing his contact with the television show host Long John Nebel. The space visitor, whose name was Solganda, spoke English to him, said Van Tassel. So Van Tassel was one of the people who had ETs showing up in person in Joshua Tree. They looked human, and they took them on board the ships. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Sounds like exactly what we were just talking about in Italy during the exact same period of time, except remember, Gaspare, no, who was the first guy's name? Bruno Salmaciccia. He was the first one to get contacted. That wasn't until 1956.
Yeah, so again, David Wilcock with this false, stupid logic of his. Well, a guy in Italy said that he was being contacted by aliens, human-looking aliens, and they spoke English. And George Van Tassel said he was being contacted by aliens, and they spoke English. So both of these people must be telling the truth because they're both telling similar stories. It's flawed logic. It's so stupid that he keeps doing this. And I wonder about the critical thinking skills of the people that actually follow David Wilcock. How come they don't wake up and say, gee, just because two people said this doesn't mean that either of them are telling the truth. Neither of them had real evidence.
So what I think might have happened is that the beings were starting to see the Van Tassel thing go off the rails, the Integratron thing. They had to pull the plug. And then they said, well, okay, maybe this avenue isn't really working. Maybe we shouldn't give them so much philosophy. Let's go somewhere else on Earth and let's try again. Let's contact them in person.
So here he's trying to bridge the gap and say that the George Van Tassel aliens got sick of George Van Tassel, and they must have went over to Italy and talked to Bruno Sammartino and the friendship case people. There's no proof or evidence that these were the same entities. First of all, this is just ridiculous. This is David Wilcock's stupid connect the dots game that he always plays to try to convince gullible people that anything he's talking about has any kind of basis in truth, reality, or have any kind of value. It doesn't.
Tell them who we are. Tell them that we mean peace. We come in peace, and let's just see what happens. And unfortunately, they got disappointed. In that case, it wasn't until the late 1970s they had to cut everything off with most people. But again, they didn't really get what they wanted out of doing this because people are not ready. They either think they're a god or they get a big ego.
And I love that the friendship aliens would only talk to people if people brought them truckloads of clothing and groceries, produce, because aliens can come from, 100,000 light years, in advanced starships, and they have teleportation capability and all this advanced technology, but they need humans to give them clothing and, produce.
Other people start worshiping them, and none of this is what the beings want. Okay, back to the slide. So people were being contacted and there were communications happening. And how did these communications occur and what did they say? The first thing we're going to explore is what may have been the very first attempt these ETs made by radio telegraph.
Oh, he's not going to do it, is he?
Now you might say to yourself,
Yeah.
what the heck is radio telegraph? If you look at the picture here, I'll cut back to it in just a second. It's the idea of sending Morse code over shortwave radio. Because sometimes in shortwave, it's so weak that you can't make out what somebody's saying. You know, all this kind of nonsense. But you can hear even if it's really, really staticky. So it's a very secure way to communicate wirelessly. It was essentially the original email, other than the fact that you could just pick up the telephone and call somebody. But radio is more cool, and back then long distance calling was almost impossible. So you could play around with shortwave and get a lot of stuff done. So according to the other...
I love how he's always an expert on everything, right? Like he's an expert on geopolitics. He's an expert on, astrophysics. He's an expert in physics. Now he's an expert on early shortwave radio and forms of communication.
George Hunt Williamson. There was a group of people who were being contacted beginning in 1952 where they were ham radio operators. And they have the radio in their house and they're communicating with people by telegraph, but then very precise signals start coming in. And the precision indicated that it was done digitally, which of course we wouldn't have had in 1952, but the beings told us.
Yeah, it is, but they use it on radio.
So these communications were very precise, very fast, almost as if they were done mechanically, which again, I believe they were. But what starts to happen is that it's an intelligence that's communicating with the people, and it starts telling them that they are extraterrestrials, that they came from elsewhere, that they have motherships, that they're here to help us. And in some of these cases, once trust was established,
Salvation
said, go out into the backyard. And people would go out into their backyard after being told to do this, and a craft appears,
maybe,
and it actually takes them on a ride. So several of the people who are the 1950s American ET contactees.
David Icke's no fan of David Wilcock.
Six groups where they were, at least six groups in the book that we're going to see, where they were contacted by radio telegraph, and then they actually got an in-person contact where the beings appeared to them in person. After these in-person contacts, usually what would happen is that it would change over from in-person to telepathy. Once you identified the beings, once you identified what it's like to be around them and the telepathic communication that you can have.
All right, so first you got to talk to them on the radio through teletype, and then they'll talk to you telepathically. Okay, David.
Them in person, then you could recognize it when they weren't there in person, and that's the way they preferred to communicate. And they gave us some very, very amazing messages through this particular method.
Yeah, and I guarantee that these messages are going to somewhat conform to David Wilcock's pre-existing total 100% belief in the law of one. So they must be true.
Now let's go back to the slide. So Dr. Wilbert B. Smith was the Canadian radio communications engineer who ended up getting brought in to investigate these radio telegraph communications, and he was also a recipient. He was one of the 6 groups that started to have this happen directly to him. So the contacts began in 1952. Oh, and I guess instead of 6, it was 12, because these slides were taken right out of the book. So 12 different groups.
Yeah, and by the way, back then in 1950, there was no way to know where a radio broadcast was coming from. Anybody with a radio and knowledge of Morse code could have been transmitting these messages, just messing with people. Like, hey, I'm an alien. It could have been that. It could have been as stupid and simple as that, but not to David Wilcock. It must have been aliens. Even though there's no proof it was actually aliens, he's going to tell you it was aliens. Because just like, everyone on Ancient Aliens, I'm not saying it was definitely aliens, but it must have been aliens.
I was off by half. 12 different groups were independently contacted. And W.B. Smith was one of the people who was personally contacted by his radio telegraph. And George Hunt Williamson, who apparently his real name was Michel de Brenovich, he wrote this book called The Saucers Speak on these 1952 and above contacts. He did not reveal W.B. Smith's identity, But if you go to presidentialufo.com, which is Grant Cameron's website, he's one of the great UFO researchers in my view. Grant has some great documents on there that clearly show communication happening between W.B. Smith and George Hunt Williamson. And additionally to that,
Grant actually does have some interesting information about, because Grant's from Canada, he does have some interesting information about early UFO research taking place in Canada. I'll give him that.
The questioner for the Law of One, his name was Dr. Don Elkins. He was personal friends with George Hunt Williamson. And so
what did I say? He's going to tie this into the Law of One. Oh, God, David Wilcock, you are so gullible. I don't know if David Wilcock actually believes this crap or if he just so desperate that he's got to tie in the Law of One crap so he could sell his courses, which include Law of One material.
Copy of the book, which I saw when I stayed at their place, L&L Research in Louisville, Kentucky, in the margin where it says the scientist in George Hunt Williamson's book, he wrote in W.B. Smith because Williamson told him it was W.B. Smith. So if you actually
it's okay if
that,
people want me to read comments, they put them in all
caps. So
caps.
I guess we could ask L&L to take a picture of that part of the book where he wrote in that that's who it was, but it's not necessary. The point is, there's documents on President.
Well, he does have a 180 IQ according to
between
him.
Williamson and W.B. Smith. So that's who the scientist is. If you go find this book, The Saucers Speak, which is a very amazing book even today. Back to the slide. So the ETs explained that our solar system, if you summarize what all the different stuff was saying, this is the total of what they say. The ETs explained that our solar system was moving into a more highly energized region of our galaxy, that this would create measurable increases in cosmic ray bombardment, and our entire solar system would be transformed by this process. Well, doesn't this sound familiar? And they gave this message to world governments. Well, yes. So in short, if you come back on Sunday, go to Ascension Mystery School.
Here comes the pitch. Here comes the pitch.
Sign up there. We have a payment plan now. So it's $111 a month for 3 months. Or if you took one of my classes before, you can sign up for $222, but that's a one-time payment. Okay. Anyway.
Well, praise the cash. Praise the cash. David Wilcock is selling his new course for just $222. Even though you might have bought his last Ascension course for $333 and you didn't ascend, now you got to buy his next course. This is his third course on Ascension, and you might not ascend again. I don't know. I don't think anybody ascended from his first Ascension course for $333. And then some people bought the second one and still didn't ascend. Maybe the third time's a charm, David Wilcock, and all these people are going to start ascending after they send you another bunch of money.
We're going to go through these 1950s emails. Well, they're like emails, right? But they're transmissions. And we know actually who got the right stuff. So let's keep going here. So back to the slide. W.B. Smith's identity was hidden in the books because he had a security clearance with the Canadian government. And as I said, the telegraph messages eventually switched to in-person contacts, which then led to direct telepathy.
Right, we're gonna fast forward here.
Concepts, and this is one area in which I really love Gnosticism. I don't like the demiurge thing, but I love this part. Living information that is alive.
Where's he getting this from? But okay.
And not only that, but information that once you come in contact with it, it actually gestates your spirit body. It creates an awakening.
An awakening, kind of like your Ascension class, right? You're going to teach people. And, you know, in other parts of this, he pitches that he's going to teach you to communicate with extraterrestrials telepathically. For just $333, you too can learn how to communicate with extraterrestrials telepathically. Open and contact and become your higher self.
It's a frequent metaphor in these spiritual traditions of an egg. It's called the Orphic egg a lot of times. The idea being that you in your current form are like an egg, but most people never hatch out of the egg. To crack the eggshell and to actually be reborn, that only happens when you come into contact with this living information. The information is alive, And therefore, certain concepts, if I simply tell you the concepts, those concepts are alive. And it reawakens.
I don't even know what to say about this. Information is alive. He's got living information that he's going to share with you, and then it's going to change your whole life, and you're going to be reborn. This is hopium garbage that he's selling people for $333.
According to these ETs, some part of you that already knows that this is true. And then that's called attunement. And so when you start attuning to what they call the living information, the information that is alive, right? When you attune to living information, it gestates this process.
I want to send two, but I don't have $333, so I guess I never will.
And this is why Jesus does say in the New Testament that you must be born again. Yeah, there's a lot of born again Christians who have really, really, in some cases, grossly offended others.
And he has been selling the same BS forever.
God,
shout out to Veronica Lake.
On, David. God, I can't stand this. Look, I want to be clear on this, folks. I knew that the Great Pyramid was a monument to the coming Christ in 1996.
Yeah, there's no factual or real evidence that the Great Pyramid had anything to do with Jesus Christ. He just sweeping that in.
I knew in 1996 that the Law of One series was very Christian and validated the divinity of Jesus. Says that he is the embodiment of the Logos, the galactic mind. Okay, so, but here's the deal. I grew up in a family where Christianity was not seen favorably. My mother had really bad experiences with it, and I understand why. Okay? So I didn't want to link the Law of One to Christianity. I resented the link.
Yeah, and most Christian ministers would tell you that channeled information and Christianity have nothing to do with each other. But what David Wilcock does is that he casts a wide net so that he can get Christian people, he can get New Agers, he can get UFO believers, all to buy his crap. That's what it's about.
Actually, for a long time, I didn't want all this religion at all. So you may have noticed, if you've been following my career through the 1990s and through the double zeros, did I ever link the Law of One to Christianity? No. Did I ever link the pyramid to Christianity? No. Why am I doing it now? Because I think I've grown up a little bit. I've gotten more mature, I hope. And in my maturation, I said, you know what? I don't want what I want. I want what thy will is to be done. What does the Creator want? And it's like, wait a minute, David. If you know that the Law of One is Christian, and you know that the pyramid is...
The Law of One is not Christian. And every time he says that, it's an offense to Christians. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It's a channeled work.
Christian, you really ought to tell people. And don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about offending Christians worldwide. You know, one of the three hugest religions on planet Earth, maybe the largest.
In fact, what the Law of One teaches us is so much more interesting than regular religion that, like, yeah, it's linked to Christianity, but it would be as if the seraphim come back and say, okay, you guys, we're going to give you a lot more because things have gotten so screwed up that you really need to have this. And that's what I think is going on. And they were starting this in the 1950s. So when you come in contact with living information, you start thinking different thoughts.
That is garbage. This is garbage. I'm sorry. This is New Age gobbledygook garbage, David Wilcock. And, you know, one of the things I always think when I listen to this guy is pick a lane. Either you're a religious guy and a spirituality guy, or you're a UFO guy. Why does he got to mix it all up? I've mentioned why he's got to mix it all up, because he likes to cast a wide net and get all these different subcultures of people to buy his garbage, which is the same reason why he was a big-time Trumper and running with the letter of the alphabet conspiracy, because he wanted them to start buying his crap too.
Why do you think different thoughts? Because the part of you that is a spirit becomes alive and it starts talking. And when you meditate, it will be something you can hear. So this is part of your cosmic awakening, okay? But what are they saying here? If you take these 1950s ETs, all that material was put together. It was stored at L&L Research. They read it. They got attuned. If you study the right stuff,
or they read that material and just regurgitated a lot of it. That's a possibility too, David. And you don't even talk about the possibility that they're just repeating New Age garbage from people who claim they talk to aliens.
You hear the living information and you keep exposing yourself to it by reading it and hearing it and watching videos where it's talked about. Then
yeah, I don't know about that.
You actually become
I think that I am,
potentially
Veronica.
attuned so that they can talk to you directly.
Yeah, more like
other
25 years of
If you
bullshit.
expose yourself to living information sufficiently enough, it actually does raise your vibration to a point where, at least temporarily, these beings can speak to you. So, for example, you might then be able to meditate and get yourself into a very blissful consciousness where, if you follow the protocols, you can get this telepathic information fairly cleanly. But again, I always encourage people, don't ever assume that any telepathic source is 100% accurate. Always assume that there are hidden gotchas in there that would be very significant. Now,
yeah, or another translation could be that if you think you're in communication with otherworldly beings, they might not be aliens, they may be demons. He never mentions that. And these people that are channeling, that think they're channeling aliens, they could be channeling demons. And that's very dangerous. Even encouraging, or, he's encouraging Christian people to take on these very dangerous practices that could open themselves up to demonic attack. That's my personal belief, being a Christian.
One more thing that shows you the 1950s ETs never left. I have to jump ahead a little bit here, so let me just do that. And this is the last little thing I want to show you guys, because it will blow your doors off.
Oh boy, I can't wait, David.
Okay, and then we're going to have a lot more of these prophecies and stuff that we're going to come out with later, okay? So, and then, okay, got that. So we have, let's go back to the slide now. There's a stunning modern prophecy that has occurred at Giant Rock, and in light of I really am grateful about how much more racial harmony we're getting on Earth. This actually happened to a woman of color.
Is he's saying that we have racial harmony on Earth right now? At least in the United States, this is the most contentious time between races that I can remember in my lifetime, right? Black Lives Matter, all the police brutality and police shootings of unarmed black men and this and that. And he's saying that we're oh gosh.
The woman of color is Sri Natha Devi. And she, as you can read here, she is the woman who got this prophecy from the beings, apparently, came through very accurately, as you're going to see why in a minute. This is very shocking, okay? Sri Natha Devi is the founder of Eagle Winds of Enlightenment Center, a small spiritual center in a rough area of Los Angeles. Started almost 30 years ago. She spreads a message of world peace and unity, and has been recognized as an international ambassador for peace and universal peacemaker for her service. Now, I haven't actually
recognized by whom
met her yet. I would be totally open to do so. And when you see what happened to her and how incredible this is, I would say she should be included in disclosure. I'd love to see.
Here we go. The master of connecting disconnected dots and acting like this is all connected, David Wilcock. Now he's going to bring in this, spiritual guru from Los Angeles. Okay.
Sri Natha Devi, taken seriously, given her honor, and asked what happened to her and to tell the story, because this is unfrickin' believable. And I had to end it with this, okay? Back to the slide. So on February 23rd, 2000, an ancient prophecy was fulfilled in a very, very dramatic way. So according to the prophecy, and this again came to her apparently through basically like a telepathic process, Giant Rock symbolized our Mother Earth, and she had come across a Native American tradition, I guess it was told to her, where the Native Americans were told by these human beings, these human ETs, that one day Giant Rock would actually split open, and that when this happens, a new era would be revealed. So Sri Natha Devi brought a number of powerful healers to the desert. These are people with established track records as healers. They all got
Sure they are, David. Sure.
Together with her at Giant Rock to pray and meditate. The date that this grand summit of all these great healers happened was February 19th and 20th of 2000. During this time, she was apparently getting telepathic information from these angelic souls that were telling her that the earth is going to react to us because not enough people were doing sacred ceremonies. And so these people were told that they should pray for the salvation of the planet, and that if Mother Earth accepted their prayers, the rock would split open on its side.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do that it's a 20, 50, or 80, or 300,000-year-old rock that has been exposed to the elements for maybe hundreds of thousands of years. You know, boulders split. That's just a natural thing. But here we go, David Wilcock connecting the dots. He's going to tell this fantastical story. Yeah, okay.
And relieve the pressure. If Mother Earth refused their prayers, meaning that we're all doomed, the rock is going to split directly down the middle, and this would foretell a very serious cataclysm.
Oh, the vaping pig, I agree with you.
Now again, this rock had not moved for millions of years. It is the largest freestanding boulder in the world, and remember again, she's telling us, okay, look, the rock is going to split open. Who in the world would be daring enough to make a claim like this? Because if the rock doesn't actually split open, you're done. Like, you lost your credibility. So it's kind of amazing that she was in the right telepathic state to even get this information and trusted enough. But she's obviously been doing this for 30 years. She's a great experienced meditator, and she's been in contact with these people. So they're telling her that the rock is about to split open in the fulfillment of the Native American prophecy, but depending on how it's going to break, whether the prayers are answered, if it breaks down the middle, we're totally screwed. But if it breaks off to one side, then the world is saved and everything's going to be fine. Again, why in the world would giant rock ever break, right?
Yeah, go ask a geologist, David Wilcock, why that rock might split. And, you know, like a lot of these fake faith healers and New Age gurus, a lot of times they take a real world event and claim that they made a prophecy before it happened, and there's never definitive proof that they did. So I'd be interested in seeing a copyrighted work where she made these claims before it happened. And I'd be willing to bet there isn't any, but okay.
Back to the slide. So this is about what it looked like at the time that she was saying all this stuff. Normal giant rock. Remember, this was February 19th and 20th. 3 days after she was told this by, again, what is probably human beings talking to her telepathically, on February 23rd, 2000, it actually happened. Now, if you are still awake, we got 9,800 people watching this live.
He's got 9,800 people watching him live. I severely doubt that. That's my opinion. I think he's got a few thousand bots watching him and a few thousand real people, but that's my opinion and I'm entitled to it.
If you don't get the arms standing up, if you don't get the hair standing up on your arms when you see this, I don't know if you're really paying attention, because check this out. She was told this. We have all these witnesses. They documented it. They wrote it down.
Why don't you show us where they wrote it down? Why don't you show us the documentation? He won't.
3 days later, this is what happened to Giant Rock. You ready? Watch the slide. I mean, my God. My God. It broke right on the side, which means the prayers were accepted. It fulfilled an ancient Native American prophecy at the location where they said it was going to happen, with the rock they said was going to happen with, 3 days after she told people this is about to happen. And again, because it broke on the side, this means that we're saved.
Or go ask a geologist what that means. It doesn't mean anything, David Wilcock, but okay.
So the rock actually split open on Monday morning, February 23rd, 2000, revealing what started as a gleaming white interior. It is long since weathered. The witnesses to her prayer included Father John, a priest from Los Angeles, Lori Joy Pinkham, and Will Clark. After the rock split open, they gathered at Devi's house less than 24 hours later, and when they did, they got 2 rounds of mysterious ball lightning, quote unquote. Probably wasn't even lightning. They saw these orbs, these visible large orbs that shot through the house, first on a north to south line and then east to west. Well, this sounds a lot like the 4 directions, doesn't it? Yes. So Debbie said that this appearance of this sphere of energy, which is very likely not lightning, but an actual intelligent being. The being went through their house north to south and then east to west. in order to let them know that the prayers had been completed, the rock broke successfully, and we are going to be okay for planet Earth.
Well, thank God we're going to be okay, because a rock broke open. A boulder, a giant boulder that's been exposed to the element for tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, split. So we're going to be okay, friends. And I love this disconnected nonsense. We start with some Italian UFO hokey case of people talking to aliens. Then we get to the 1950s aliens talking to aliens. Let's throw in some Law of One in there. Let's throw in some Gnostic stuff. And now we get to this story. And all this is connected, friends, but it's not.
Kind of a big deal when they tell you that a rock is going to break and then it does. It's kind of a big deal. Sorry, skeptics, if you can't handle this, you gotta, I mean, come on. Let's go look at, okay, now here's what it looked like as time went on. You see the shattered piece is starting to weather. There's starting to be stains on where it broke. And here again is what it looks like from the side with more stains. And it's getting more and more weathered. So, in short, folks, this is exactly the kind of thing that you could do if you had anti-gravity. You could take a very thin beam.
Now let's mix in anti-gravity to this. Oh my God, David Wilcock, what's next? Time travel?
And you kind of just gently nudge the rock apart with anti-gravity, part it in half. After you tell people 3 days before that's what you're going to do, you got eyewitnesses. So look, that was in 2000. And what they told us back then is everything is going to be okay. So apparently they knew in 2000 with this prophecy that we were going to be okay. And that is so exciting to me. So we're going to wrap it up here. Did you want to say anything, sweetheart? Or
thank God.
You want to play some bowls? Well, do we have any? Okay.
Oh, it's just going to play the bowls.
So come on in, and you can put on that mic, and then we'll unmute it. So, yeah, what we're going to do now is get you into this meditation. But before we do, once again...
yeah, and I do just want to mention, I'm not familiar with this case, but I'm going to look into it just because, you know, yeah, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm a little too skeptical. And maybe some woman got telepathic messages from otherworldly beings that rock was going to split days before it did, and then it did. I don't know for sure, but we can certainly do a future episode of the show. Actually, that would be good to see if there's actual documentation or proof that actually happened. You know, David Wilcock is batting 1,000 with his fake stories, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that he does occasionally stumble across a good story that there is actually proof of. In fairness, I want to be fair to Mr. Wilcock, but I do love how he mixes in all these different things. We've got 1950s aliens in, talking to people in Italy. We've got people in the United States talking to aliens, running $1 million scams to build teleportation and time travel device that never worked. And George Adamski scamming people, selling books and lectures and all kinds of things. He turned out to be a complete and total fraudster. So I'm betting that this rock story is fake too. Every other story that he talked about during this entire stream was fake. The friendship case is fake. Adamski's fake. Let's see. Yeah, the Integratron, Van Tassel, that was a scam and a con, right? And yeah.
We're going to go through Francis Swan. We're going to go through all the different prophecies of the solar flash that came through these 1950s contacts.
He loves the stories of the solar flash. All right, friends. His wife is going to play some bowls badly. I don't think she understands how to actually play bowls, but that's just my opinion and speculation. And I'm no, bowl playing critic. So whatever, it is what it is. And then he does a world peace meditation, like he does at the end of all of his. And maybe he does the peace meditation at the end so he can claim that this is a charitable work, that this entire video is covered under his 501c3 charity. And then he can just keep all the money that he collected during the stream and not pay any taxes on it, because he did a meditation at the end after he talked about fake alien stories for, let's see, 2 hours and 40 minutes. We're done. We made it through, friends. We made it through. Now I'm going to devote my full and total attention to the live chat. We're going to try to wrap things up here. I've got some other things to do for the show tonight. Melissa is here. Shout out to Melissa. Apparently this, apparently that. I wasn't going to say anything, but that moron is driving me mad with that stuff. What a way to say, I'm not liable for anything I said. Yeah. I like how he said, I don't know if this is true or not, but yes, everything is great. As long as I get my 5th installment of $399.95. Sure thing, right? Sure thing. Bring on Billy Myers. Billy Myers' proof and evidence is actually much better than any of the crap that David Wilcock shared during this 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, so any questions or comments for me, please put them in the live chat. I want to thank, I'm going to check in. I want to thank the people that sent us super chats tonight. Thank you very much for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. It really does help the show moving forward. We are a viewer-supported show. So if you want to help the show, there's a little money sign in the live chat. You too can send a super chat. Otherwise, there is PayPal donate and Patreon links in the About section of our video here tonight. Let's check in. I don't ever want to miss a super chat. I'm going to make sure that we got them. What just happened? That is weird. 1 second. Yeah, that wasn't good. Okay. I was on the wrong account and I hit monetization and it said, notify me when I'm eligible. I thought I got demonetized, but it looks like we're good, right? 1 second. I just want to make sure. Yeah, so we have Chase Davenport with a kind and generous super chat of $4.99. We have Ellen Fox with a kind and generous super chat of $4.99, and Chase Davenport with a second, even kinder and even more generous super chat donation of $4.99. So we did call them out earlier. We read everyone twice. I want to thank everybody that is contributing to the show. You make the show work, so thank you very much. Okay, All Around Arbiter says, these New Agers are just as dangerous, corrosive, and damaging as the televangelists. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And there we have it, All Around Arbiter with a kind and generous $2 donation. Thank you, All Around Arbiter. And All Around Arbiter, I want to thank you for your continued support because I noticed that you gave a kind and generous super chat donation on our last show. So thank you for your continued support. And for always supporting the show and being here in the live chat. I see him retweeting stuff that I tweet. Also, for those that are listening, and we are now broadcasting our show on some, I think it's 12 or 14 different audio podcast platforms. So if you're listening on Spreaker or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where you're listening to the audio podcast, we want to invite you. Make sure you come. Just go to YouTube and search the search bar and search for Truthseekers, one word, Truthseekers. You'll see that weird guy with the sunglasses. That would be me, your host, Stephen Cambion. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash that notification bell. It really does help us to raise in the search engines here. And then you, if you're listening in audio podcast land, you're missing out on half the fun because we do a live chat every live show. Every show we record, we have a live chat here on YouTube. I don't want you to miss out. So if you're listening in audio podcast land, go to YouTube, search the search bar for Truth Seekers, look for the guy with the sunglasses and click on subscribe and hit the notification bell. Then every time we do a live show, you'll get a notification and you too can come and participate in our live chat. All of you listening in audio podcast land, you guys are all very much welcome here. And we would like to grow our community here. It's a fun community. We always have a good time in the live chat. Shout out to Mark Tirana. He is here and he says, pro-grifting at its best. Yeah. This is 25 years of David Wilcock. And by the way, living in $1 million mansions, living a millionaire's lifestyle while he's giving us garbage, fake information, fake stories about aliens, less than good sources, less than good information. There's no value to any of the information that he shares. Effluent for You is here reminding people, I'll give you a thumbs up and a comment. It's all I can afford. Yeah, and Effluent for You, hey, brother, can you spare $1? I know it's rough out there. That's why I'm out here begging for dollars on the internet. However, there's another way to support us that really does help just as much as a couple of bucks. And that is to like, comment, subscribe, right? Hit the notification bell, like these videos, comment on these videos. I try to at least acknowledge every comment that's left on any video here on YouTube. I reply to as many of them as I can. It gets a little busy sometimes. I will try to do better with doing that. And please do like, comment, and subscribe, and share these videos on your social media. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and send some video links to your friends. Please share our channel link on your social media. And thank you all for helping us grow. We're seeing a steady uptick of subscribers. The show is slowly growing, and I really am working on finding ways to do more and better shows. We're continually working on the show here. This current heat wave has me at a very big disadvantage because the office that I work around, and once again, thanks to All Around Arbiter for the kind and generous $2 donation. And Matt Cadet says, sharing is caring. Yes, if you really do care about our show, and hey, I know it's rough out there. You don't need to send me a couple of bucks. You can help me just as much by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing these videos, hit the notification bell, smash that like button. It helps raise us in the search engine, and that really does help us find more viewers. Matt Cadet says, Pavid Wilcock. Yeah, that should be, that should be great. What we need is twerking alien babes. I'm working on that, actually, Effluent for You. I'm definitely working on that. Yeah, and I didn't shout out before, so I'll shout out now. Tony Z is here. Shout out to Tony Z. Shane 187 Thompson is here. Shout out to Shane 187 Thompson. I see Melissa is here. I did not shout out before, but shout out to Veronica Lake. I think we got AJ before, but AJ is here. We'll just shout out the last bunch of people. Mark Tirana is here. FGraph72 is here. All Around Arbiter. I mentioned Tony Z. FGraph72. Effluent for You. Melissa, of course, from my friend from Mexico. Good to see you in the live chat, Melissa. The Vaping Pig is here. Plan D is here. Noodle Time is here. Yeah, I think we got everybody in the shout outs tonight. We want to make sure that we make sure that we respect and recognize everybody showing up for the live chat. It's called Truthseekers. I can't do this alone. And shout out to Hugh Pushko, who was here in the live chat. We didn't shout you out earlier, I don't believe. Torvik is here. Torvik mentions David Wilcock's got a payment plan, and now it's not going to cost you $333. It's only going to cost you $111 a month. You too can have Ascension for just 3 easy payments of $111 a month. Even though the first 2 courses I sold on Ascension, I can't show you anybody actually ascended. Matt Cadet is here. Shout out to Matt Cadet. We mentioned Lee Veltman is here. He's in every live stream I've ever seen on YouTube. Ann Kurtz is here. Shout out to Ann Kurtz. Bobby Dogstone is here. Shout out to Bobby Dogstone. Jolly Bridge Burner is here. And I think we got them all. Now I got to go back to the front of the live chat so I don't miss anything. Ooh, 1 second. I did miss something here. Melissa with a kind and generous donation of 50 Mexican pesos, draining my account in Mexico, so I only have 50 US fake dollars. I laugh every time Melissa sends me something because it's like 50 or 100, and then I go, oh, it's pesos. But I love Mexican pesos, and I think it's so cool, Melissa, that somebody can send me Mexican pesos. I want to thank you for your kindness, your generosity, your support, and your continued support of the show. It is much appreciated, my friend Melissa from Mexico. Love that name. Veronica Lake says Wilcock is shameless. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Wilcock is shameless. I mean, first of all, the guy was totally wrong. In the year 2000, he claimed that there was going to be this mass Ascension event, and that didn't happen. And then in 2012, he claimed that, you heard him earlier talking about cosmic rays and this and that. In 2012, he claimed that some of us were going to become ascendant masters, and we would get superpowers. We would be able to levitate and telekinesis and telepathically communicate with each other, and none of that happened. Most recently, he said that Donald Trump was going to win the election in a landslide, and that didn't happen. Then he predicted that Joe Biden would never be inaugurated, because if he did, all the members of the alliance would be murdered. And then Joe Biden got inaugurated. I don't know if the members of the alliance got murdered, but I think the alliance is some made-up construct that doesn't exist. So what are you doing? And Melissa finally, says praise the cash. And All Around Arbiter says praise the cash. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for your kindness, your generosity, and support, and just say, praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Thank God Almighty. This is so much better than working at Taco Bell. So thank all you people, because it's this or Taco Bell. All right. Nobody in their right mind will give me a real job. That's why I'm doing this. Okay. But I do get to use so many of my artistic and creative talents here. And it is so much more fulfilling doing this every day than doing some meaningless job that I don't care about. Especially a meaningless part-time job that I do not care about. Noodle Time says, is that a green screen behind you or those actual TVs? It's a green screen, but I definitely like it. I definitely like it. I think that's a cool background, right? And for a time, you can check my old YouTube channel under Stephen Cambion. I did a lot of music videos where I would put my head inside all these different TVs and stuff. So I'm a big fan of like old TVs and things like that. And Tony Z with a kind and generous super sticker of $5. I think that's Australian. So my friend from Australia, Tony Z, thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Purchasing a super sticker for $5. You have my attitude of gratitude. You have my gratitude, friend. Every dollar does help us to keep the show going. I want to recognize your kindness, your generosity, and support. I want to say God bless you and all of the other people who have been sending me a couple of bucks, who are helping me to continue to do this instead of a job that I hate. Imagine that. Imagine that. Once in a while, the world may actually work out, right? I'm a big believer, however, in deciding to do something and saying, I will not be stopped. Because when you do that, when you say, I'm doing this, I don't care what happens. I don't care what obstacles get in my way. I don't care what barriers I get presented with. I'll jump over them. When you are that adamant that you're going to continue and succeed, I think that the universe gets out of your way. I really think the universe gets out of your way. So thank you, Tony Z, and All Around Arbiter, and Melissa, and let's see here, Chase Davenport, and Ellen Fox, for all of your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Those are the kind and generous people who have helped us tonight to continue the show and move things going forward. You really do give me an attitude of gratitude. Every day I come here and I just can't believe the support that we're getting. It's a dream come true. I get to do something creative and artistic and intellectually challenging. I'm doing a lot of new research and things which we're going to be bringing you. And oh, by the way, I have fantastic news. And that fantastic news is that this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have the one, the only Michael Schratt here as a guest. I can't tell you, friends, Michael Schratt is one of my favorite researchers. People ask me all the time, because I bust balls on a lot of these fake UFO frauds and UFO hucksters. And people ask me all the time, well, are there any guys in UFOs that you really admire and respect? And there used to be some old timers that I did. Some of them have passed away or are no longer active. But of the few other people, I certainly like Alien Scientist. I think he's very grounded and science-based. I like John Greenwald from the Black Vault, because that guy, he goes to the ends of the earth to get the information he wants. And he is one of those people that just won't be stopped. He goes to the ends of the earth. And another person worthy of note that I really do like, admire, and respect is Michael Schratt. Michael Schratt does amazing illustrations, drawings, and he does incredible research. And Michael Schratt has one of the largest collections of UFO-related material on planet Earth. We're going to talk to him about this, but I'm told he's got like 3 different storage spaces filled floor to ceiling with UFO case files, photographs, films, all kinds of UFO material. And Michael Schratt does amazing research and has for some time. He's one of the people that actually inspired me to start really researching these subjects seriously. And we're going to get to interview him here this coming Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss this one if you like UFOs. He's incredibly knowledgeable. We're going to be talking about his book, which we previewed earlier on a previous episode. You can check that out. One second. I'm going to thank God, though, that we got also, I'm thankful that we got through this latest David Wilcock garbage stream. I thought we might not make it, right? I thought we might not make it through. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was logged in on my old YouTube account earlier. I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. And we covered Michael Schratt's book, and it's called Michael Schratt's Dark Files. And the book is amazing. We did a previous episode about it a few days ago called Discussing Michael Schratt's Dark Files, Lost, Forgotten, and Obscure UFO Encounters. And that, my friends, is what we're going to be talking to Michael Schratt about, his new book. And we'll delve into some other subjects. So it's going to be a great time, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. And Sweet Cheeks is here. A little late, but better than never. I'll put watch for Sweet Cheeks on my Christmas list, Sweet Cheeks. But no, I am very happy to see you. Matt Gadet says, awesome, can't wait. Yeah, All Around Orbiter says, the Alliance is just as made up as the Legion of Doom. Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Yeah. So, friends, we're going to try to wrap things up. I'm going to bounce out of here. Once again, I want to invite anybody in audio podcast land. If you're listening to our show on audio podcast land, you really are missing half the fun. Please do go to YouTube, search for Truthseekers. Look for the guy with sunglasses. Go there and click subscribe. It really does help us to move the show forward. And then you too can come here and participate and be a part. Be a part of our live chat. We have a great live chat here every time we do a live show, and we read questions and comments, and you are most welcome here. Terry Joyce mentioning that David Wilcock is trying to play prophet. Yeah, and he does a terrible job of it, because there's something Terry Joyce called the test of a prophet in Christianity, which basically said if anything the prophet predicts doesn't happen, he's not a real prophet, he's a false prophet. And David Wilcock has proven time and time again to be a false prophet. He fails the test of a prophet almost every time he makes some kind of psychic prediction. I've famously called him the world's worst fake psychic. He's terrible at it. He is absolutely terrible at being a fake psychic. I know guys that are great at being fake psychics. Truly, he's terrible at it. Yeah. AJ said he's making profit. Yeah. He's not a prophet. He's about making profit. That's David Wilcock. Absolutely. And Chase Davenport saying, stay off that shit, Matt. I don't know what that's about. Yeah. But thank you, Chase Davenport, for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. You are most welcome here, friend. All right. So we're gonna call it a night here. We're gonna bounce out of here. I want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. Smash that like button. Come over here to the YouTube channel and find us if you're listening in audio podcast land. You're most welcome to come here and take part in the discussion. We would love to have more people contributing to the conversation, because it really is a conversation here. This is a very live and interactive show. It's not just about passively listening, although you can, if that's your choice. But we would love to have you come and participate. So I'm always happy when there's an audience, friend, and we had one of our highest numbers of attendance tonight between the 3 streamed locations. Remember, we do stream Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube simultaneously, all 3 streaming locations. When we do a live show, we had some of our best numbers ever tonight. I'm always happy, friends, when there's an audience, and I can't thank you enough for being a part of mine. We want to once again thank our Super Chat donators tonight. We want to recognize and support their kindness and their generosity. 1 second here. Yeah, so we had Chase Davenport, Ellen Fox, All Around Arbiter, Melissa, and 1 second. Why is it not? It's not. I gotta refresh it. That's what it is, I think. It's getting a little bit confused. There we go. Yes, so 1 second. Chase Davenport, Ellen Fox, All Around Arbiter, Melissa, and Tony Z are kind and generous benefactors tonight, helping us move the show forward. And Chase Davenport with 2 actual super chats. So thank you guys very much for your kindness, your generosity, and support. Like I said, I'm always happy when there's an audience. And I can't thank you guys all enough for coming here and being a part of mine. No place that I would rather be than to hang out with you guys and spend some quality time together. Until next time, friends. And next time will be 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow night, I will be returning with a new show. Until next time, friends, good night and God bless all of you.